They're second in ESPN's pass block win rate. I think their tackles are better overall because Zach Tom at right tackle plus Rasheed Walker is better than Trent Williams and whoever is playing right tackle for the 49ers. And the interior of the Packers offensive line is also better. So that's one of those things that I think is a big difference this year versus last time, because last time the Packers had Billy Turner, who was a right tackle playing left tackle, and then Dennis Kelly, who was a backup playing right tackle. So I think the pass protection is a big one because you're going to have to protect Jordan Love if you want to score points. The run defense, I'm really being a little cheeky about because I don't think the 49ers actually have a worse run defense generally than the Packers. But the pass protection is the key thing here. And I think that is going to be a big part of what ultimately plays in the outcome. And then just a little thing, Keyshawn Nixon is the best return man in the NFL. I know the 49ers special teams have not been great.
He's not even on my radar, so that's good to hear.
Cost them a game earlier in the year, right? Against the Browns. And so there's that. And then this game specific thing, I trust this Packers team to handle the elements, if there are elements, better than the 49ers. That has been a talking point this week. If it rains, can Brock Purdy hang on to the ball?
Well, they're used to it.
Jordan Love is not only just used to it, he played in the Mountain West. So he's played in snow before, played in these weird kind of games. He's got monster hands. As opposed to Brock Purdy. And I know you want to say, okay, he's the same size as Patrick Mahomes. Well, Patrick Mahomes, all he does in big games and cold games and whatever the weather is play great. We haven't seen it with Brock Purdy, right? So that's just a little thing that I think is something that the Packers could end up handling better than the 49ers, but we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. In regards to the tackling thing, with the 49ers, what I've noticed, and this is something I've been talking about for a couple of weeks, is they've had I think they've had the hardest travel schedule in the NFL, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And so they've been traveling a lot, playing a lot of good teams. And you'll notice, like during the 3-game skid where we lost, that's where the tackling was a problem. And that was after, what was it, week 6, week 5. So I think that hurt them. And then they got the bye week, and then they came back and played good again. And then we saw towards the end of the season, these last 2 or 3 games, they kind of had those problems again. But the great news is they're rested now. And I think it was more of an attrition thing for the 49ers. So we'll see. Hopefully that's not an issue moving forward. I do have Johnny Dale backstage, and I know I want to respect your time, but these guys paid good money to ask you these questions, so maybe we can shoot through them if that's okay.
Yeah.
He says, Pete, think your LBs and DBs can cover BA, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I straight up don't. Like, I think those kinds of situations, what you'll have to do if you're the Packers is rally and tackle. That's just going to be that. Like, if he's going to beat you on an option route, on a little 8-yard depth of target, you got to make it an 8 to 10 yard play. You can't turn 8 into 80. And so I think that's going to be the key. They don't have anybody to cover Christian McCaffrey. I don't know that anyone has anyone to cover Christian McCaffrey except maybe the 2 guys on the 49ers, which seems a little unfair.
Right. James Welsh asks, PB Candor about Purdy. Anyone who isn't a Niner fan reasonable, they recognize the fit and production, but that he isn't upper echelon. Say that to a Niner fan and they lose their minds. Yeah.
I get it. And there have been some people who are going, Jordan Love is thrown to open guys too. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But we've seen, I think, Jordan Love create more within and without the structure of the offense than Brock Purdy. And I think that's part of the reason why, if you're going to say Jordan Love is better than Brock Purdy, you point to some of those moments where you go, okay, yeah, they're both thrown to open guys. They both have great scheme, great coaches, great play calling. But when things break down, when you got a 0 blitz and a guy bearing down on you, can you make those elite level throws like that Dontavian Wicks touchdown last week with a guy in your face? Jordan Love, I just think, is better equipped to do that.
And then Brother Bob, he says, and I don't know if this is like, you don't necessarily have to answer this as a question, but maybe you could reiterate your points. He says, Petey, you cool, but come on, a better pass rush defense.
Yeah, a better, I would say not a better group of players, but I will say this: the last month, even when like Bryce Young is lighting them up and Baker Mayfield is lighting them up, the run defense has played a lot better in the second half. The Packers run defense has, and so they've been a little bit more aggressive playing base. They've been playing some more of these 4-man fronts. They've been playing some of these 5-man surfaces where you're trying to get one-on-ones. So they've been playing a lot better lately. And again, I'm just telling you that what the numbers say, EPA per rush, the Packers have a better run defense. So I think the 49ers have an advantage in the run game in this game against the Packers. Let me be clear about that. But I think the Packers are also going to be able to have an advantage on their side of the ball, running the ball on San Francisco. I think they will be able to run the ball on San Francisco in a way that they were not able to do 2019, 2021, 2020, those against those teams. It's just a different team.
Yeah. This one real quick. This is it. I don't even think this is a commercial or a question for you necessarily. Dave Barclay, by the way, thank you so much, man. $50 super chat. That's huge. He says, Ryan, love you, man. Yeah. God bless our Niners. Love your content. Love your guests. There's a passion for football on the channel. Thank you to your Packers guy. His name is Peter Bukowski. I'm saying that right? Bukowski? Yeah. Yeah, Peter Bukowski. I don't have much to say, but here's 50. Turn your live commercials off, please. How is Pack's secondary? Oh, there is a question in there. Dave, I will turn off my live commercials. If you guys keep up with these super chats, you got a deal, brother. But he does want to know, how is your secondary? I guess that'll be my last question for you today.
Playing really well. Especially the last month, they've been playing really, really well. And if Jay Alexander's out there, like Carrington Valentine, he's been a revelation, 7th round rookie, just absolutely no fear, wants to press everybody, will talk trash to you the entire game. And Darnell Savage coming off the best game of his career, I think, against the Dallas Cowboys. They've got this other 7th round rookie, Anthony Johnson Jr. from Iowa State, who I think is doing some nice things and some 3 safety looks. And Jonathan Owens, a Texas guy, husband of Simone Biles, he stepped in as their starting safety. He brings a little bit of pop in those shoulder pads. So they've been playing better lately. And part of the reason is this pass rush has just been awesome. And I think I need to give that a shout out. 5 sacks against Justin Fields in that last game, 4 sacks on Dak Prescott, and bothered him on many more plays than that. I think this is going to be a game where the Packers are going to be comfortable playing some man coverage, especially on 3rd downs. And so it's going to be a Brock Purdy, how much can he beat you with his legs kind of game. The Packers, especially in the first half when they were playing a little bit more aggressively, they were using Keyshawn Nixon to spy as a nickel underneath, went in and got a sack on Dak Prescott. So I think this is going to be a fun match there. And this is, if the Packers win.
Who wins, Peter? I didn't ask you that. Can I put you on record? Who wins?
Yeah. I have the 49ers.
Okay.
But I think the Packers cover. I think it's close. I think it's like 31-27. I think for the Packers to win, it has to be played in the 20s. This has to be a 24-27 kind of game. I think if it gets above 30 for any team, that's bad news for Green Bay, because if it's like 31-35 at the end and the 49ers have a chance to go down and get the game-winning touchdown, they probably will. So if Kyle Shanahan is in his bag and dicing up Joe Barry, I have very little faith that the Packers are going to be able to get enough stops to win. I think they could score enough to win. It's the question of, can they get enough stops? I don't think they can.
I appreciate you, Peter, man. You're a great guest. I'd love to have you on longer at some point, but maybe next year we'll see you again in this similar situation and we can run it back.
Who knows?
Make sure you guys all follow Peter on Twitter. It's at Peter_Bukowski, and also Locked On Packers. Anything else you want to plug, Peter?
Locked On Sports Today is an all sports show that if you don't want Packers content, that's cool. Locked On Sports Today, it's under 20 minutes. It's like the first 15 minutes of Sports Center, the big stories. Just get caught up on everything else. You're a 49ers fan. Awesome. We got everything in there covered for you. Less than 20 minutes. Have it every day for you. It's a great way to get caught up. So go check that out. Locked On Sports Today. I have it on YouTube. I have it on wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you so much, Peter, man. You're a fantastic guest, and look forward to maybe talking to you again, maybe next year.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, buddy. What's up, folks? I want to take a second to shout out Underdog Fantasy, who is a sponsor of the channel. If you visit the description, there's a link in the details that'll take you to Underdog Fantasy. Click that link, use promo code Hensley, and they will match up to $100 of your initial deposit. You can bet on anything from football to basketball, baseball, tennis, you name it, it's in there. Use promo code Hensley. They'll match up to $100 of your initial deposit. It helps you out, and it helps me out. I appreciate it. All right, man. We are back. First time. You're not Peter Bukowski. Let me change this. That's not your name. This is Johnny Dells, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming on the show, Johnny, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Sorry I didn't see your message earlier. I think one of my kids opened the message, and so it showed up as read. Because I have 3 little kids, and A lot of times kids get the phone to watch a little Bluey or something, and so yeah. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. I think I sent that out to you. Must have been like a month or so ago, I think. And then you got back to me, and we appreciate it because we're glad to have you on. I actually, like what you do on your channel, because not too many people are. I mean, we have JL Sullivan, covers the whole NFL, does something similar. I know the coach likes to break down film a little bit, but in general, people don't break down film. So you're offering something that no one else is doing, and I appreciate it, man. I love the content.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I kind of got started on this. Gosh, it was over 10 years ago now, as just a hobby thing when my dad was dealing with some health issues, and I
Mhm.
was taking care of him, and was really doing it in a fan form for a long time. And somebody told me I should go do some stuff on YouTube, and I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think anybody's going to want to watch. And I started doing some stuff, and then I saw guys like JT and some other guys doing some stuff, and I thought, they're doing this a lot better than I am, and I took a lot of criticism in there of like feedback from people, and kind of shifted how I did things to present it how people see it now today. And it's been a passion. It's been great. It's been fun to see it grow and be able to come on shows like this, and it's a
Yeah.
dream come true in a lot of ways.
Takes a lot of work to do what you do. Yeah. And what's your background on football? How did you become such an X and O's guy?
I'm a huge nerd. No,
Yeah.
I started playing in high school, and I joined the team late, as far as in years. And when I came on, I didn't know anything about football, and had to learn everything from the ground up. And we didn't have an actual paper playbook. Like, they didn't give anybody, here's a playbook. This is what we do, offense or defense.
Mhm.
And I was struggling so hard because I'm a visual learner. And it was really hard to figure out, when they would tell me certain things to remember, especially play names and stuff, because they didn't have anything that laid out, this is what the plays are. And
Mhm.
that first season was rough, man. Like, I rode the bench the whole time, never knew what I was doing. And I went to my coaches. I'm like, how do I learn this? And they said, well, we don't have a playbook. And I said, well, okay, how can I learn what I need to do?
Mhm.
And they gave me some resources, and I started to dive into that. And that's where I got really interested and fascinated with the X's and O's of football. And it was like, the deeper you go, the more you find out you don't know. And
Mhm.
that it's like uncovering massive layers. It's not like, an onion where you have a big layer on the outside and it gets smaller as it goes in. It's actually the reverse. It's like each layer you dive into, there's just
There's
so many
more.
more details and so much more there. And from there, it's just been an opportunities and resources I've come across with different people, and rub shoulders with people smarter than me, and that know so much about the game, and have been kind enough to share information, share knowledge. And so that's one thing I love about the channel is I get a lot of international viewers, people who are trying to learn the game, who
Learn the
didn't
game.
grow up watching football. And the biggest compliment they can always give is, hey, you made this where I can understand it, and I didn't grow up watching football, and I can understand an appreciation for the detail of the game, and how it goes in. That's usually the biggest compliment I get. Is I look at that and I
Yeah.
go, that's what I love to be able to bring, is to there's so much detail, and you can get caught in the weeds on some of this stuff so
Yeah.
deep, to be
Yeah.
able to boil it down to, okay, I've only watched football for a year, and I can understand this and appreciate it. That's the thing I love to do.
Yeah, it's funny, people that aren't big football fans, they have this, then there's this stereotype, the dumb jock. But to be able to play football and to actually know what you're doing, know what's going on, it requires a lot of intelligence. It's a very complex game. I played every sport damn near growing up, like soccer, basketball, baseball, football, and football is by far the most complex when you start dialing into stuff. So yeah, definitely kills that misnomer. I forgot a couple super chats in here. I apologize. Let me get to them. And I know they're probably for Peter. Brother Bob doing the Brother Bob things. Brian final answer, Mr. Fudgepack. I don't know. Oh, okay. So Brian asked, what's the name of the Packers mascot? I have no idea what the name of the mascot is. I'm glad I didn't read that one, Brother Bob. Let me see what else we got. He says, Pete, Moody, or your kicker, who is worse? Moody, or oh yeah, they're struggling with kicker too. And I'm gonna dive in here with Johnny on some of that stuff. But have the Packers played a team this physical like us? I don't think there is one outside of the Browns, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns, at least defensively, are a very physical team, and they're going
Yeah.
to take it to you. And Jim Schwartz and Kasurek, very similar guys, very similar ways of running things, and they both want those defenses flying and hitting, and playing 11 is one. And when they show up to hit. Yeah, so I'd say the Browns are the only other really, really physical team.
Yeah. A couple other questions. Robert says, where'd I get the hat? I always shop on Lids, sir. It's either I buy it from New Era directly because I only wear Pro Fits, or I get it from Lids online. That's where I do all my thing. And then Alberto says, your YouTube channel is called Johnny Dell's Football Academy. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, Johnny Dell's Football Academy on YouTube. Really, you can just Google Johnny Dell and just you have it spelled right there. There's no H in my name. And so yeah, you just Google that and it will take you to my YouTube channel.
All right, man. Well, let's dive into some of the meat and potatoes here. One of the questions I asked Peter just now is, what are the Packers better at? I want to get your question because we were just talking about that with Peter, and there's not much that comes to mind. He mentioned a couple things. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with him when it comes to the rushing defense. He mentioned the pass blocking might be better. Maybe that's the case. I'm not familiar completely, but I want to get your opinion. What are the Packers better at?
Yeah, I do take issue with the run defense, just mainly because when you start looking at where their opponents were and how they really did perform the last month, they weren't exactly a stellar run defense. You look, they got ran all over by Tampa Bay. And here's the problem I have, and I've gotten this from Packers fans from my video that came out, is that they said, well, the defense is completely different from the Tampa Bay game. Matt LaFleur got more hands-on and all this stuff. And I go, okay, well, then it doesn't show up on film as much as you say it does. Because they say, it's this majorly different defense. When you go and look at the scheme from the Tampa Bay game or afterwards and what they played against Dallas, I didn't see a massive shift in any way. This is still the same defense. So Tampa Bay ran for like 200 some on them. Carolina ran for 96. Somebody else ran for 99. I can't remember who it was. The only two teams who didn't run really well on them was Minnesota and Chicago. Two really bad offenses. I mean, we're talking bad offenses here. And so these are teams that are having to throw the ball more. They're having problems throwing the ball too. When I went and looked at I was interested in the Chicago game because I was like, okay, this was a low scoring game. So something Chicago did in there. When you actually look at the stats on that game of players, you can't even figure out why Chicago was in that game. I mean, the Chicago's offensive production was horrible on either side of the ball. And so, yeah, and then Dallas ran for 123 on them. And when I watched the film from the Dallas game, I was like, Dallas, if they had committed to that run game early, this game is very different. The holes were there. The openings were there. There was a few rushing stops that they had, but overall, I was not looking at this team and saying, okay, this is a really stout run defense. So there's that. I would agree with pass blocking. I think they're a better pass blocking line. I was just on my channel this morning talking about it. That there's if I was to grade these offensive lines together, I would say San Francisco is obviously the better run blocking offensive line. But that's also what Kyle Shanahan has always wanted from his offensive linemen. Mike McGlinchey is a perfect example of what Kyle Shanahan wants from an offensive lineman. He was the only offensive lineman that he invested a first round pick into. And so, you see a guy who's a very good run blocker, not so much a good pass blocker, because he likes the scheme advantage it gives when you can run and the advantage it gives to your offensive line. If it comes down to a drop back game, I trust Green Bay's line more. But I like the matchup of San Francisco's line against their defensive line than I do Green Bay's offensive line against our defensive line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. What do you think from a quarterback perspective? I know, I don't think you were, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think you, like many other people, were a big fan of my Brock Purdy take last year. I believe that's correct. But what do you think about now? When you look at Brock Purdy, you look at Jordan Love, do they have the better quarterback?
I think one that comes down to what do you want to see from your quarterback and what do you value in a quarterback? And this is why I would think it was on a Twitter Spaces a while back, and somebody asked me, how do you think Brock Purdy ranks in the league? And I said, I'm not huge into quarterback rankings because I think it's kind of like ranking best food dishes. It's what do you want to see from your quarterback? What do you value in your quarterback? For me, as a classic West Coast offense 49ers fan, I love seeing the drop back pass game in timing, in rhythm, ball out on time, to a receiver in space, in stride. I love those things. A guy being able to run around and throw a 50-yard bomb is not what I value from a quarterback as much. It's not that I'm saying that's a bad thing. Those are fantastic, amazing things. We see guys do this around the league, and it's just wow, sort of stuff. But as far as, do I value that from a quarterback, as far as the sort of long-term consistency production, I loved the way that Steve Young and Joe ran the offenses. They were so fun to watch. It was so frustrating for opposing teams. And so if I'm looking at that, a ball out on time, ball out with accuracy, being able to make the layered throw, being able to make the fastball throw, being able to make the throw to the outside of the numbers on a 10-yard out route, I'm going to take Brock Purdy, because I think the way that he's run this offense as far as in time, in rhythm, ball out to the right receiver has been absolutely fantastic. When I watched the Dallas game, the one thing I was a little surprised at was some of the throws were coming out late by Jordan Love. And I'm not meaning like just a hitch late. We're talking 3-4 hitches late, or he's bailing out of a little bit of a clean pocket when the throw can be made. And this is sometimes where I struggle with the comparisons on these guys, because people say, well, yeah, Brock Purdy's not going to do what Jordan Love does there. And I say, well, no, but we also aren't seeing it as much because the ball is coming out on time. Some of these throws, the receiver was open right at the break. And I've seen Brock Purdy make that throw on the same concept over and over and over again this year. Back foot, ball out.
Yeah, I watched that film, and I noticed you pointed some of those things out. I actually watched your video breakdown early this morning. You saw some of those.
and you see that some of that stuff from Jordan Love. And so, from broadcast, it can look like, wow, he's really doing all this stuff. And I go, okay, but he didn't need to. I mean, that's great that he could. That's amazing that he could. I would like to see the ball come out sooner, because eventually somebody's going to make you pay when you do that stuff, when you hold the ball a little long. And we've seen different quarterbacks over the years get burned by that I can do this, and so I don't have to play on schedule. I think if Jordan Love was to get on schedule on everything and the ball's out on time, he'd be a serious problem in this league. Like where we're talking about, okay, here's a guy that is one of the top 5 guys in this league for the next 10 years. So, again, it comes down to what I want to see. And I saw Mr. Bukowski on there. He was talking about how Jordan Love is better equipped to make some of these off-schedule plays. And I go, we watched the games. We've seen Brock Purdy make a ton of off-schedule plays. He can do it. It's that I almost feel like he gets knocked for making on-schedule plays, all the time. And I see a lot of, guys that people would put near the top of the league. The ball's just not out in the same sort of rhythm that Brock Purdy is. When we talk about on rhythm and on time throws, Brock Purdy is up there with anybody in this league. I mean, it's just, and it's not just me that says this. You can talk, Greg Cassell talks about this. JT O'Sullivan has talked about this.
No, I agree with that
100%. On his channel. A+ anticipation. When you see that, you're going, the way that he's playing with this is as good as any quarterback that we've seen. And I love what you said earlier. When you were talking with him, that you said Brock Purdy's running this offense as well as anybody, including going back to MVP Matt Ryan, the Shanahan system. And I've said that for a while. I say, yeah, absolutely. The efficiency that he's running. So when I say, when people say, I think if somebody else is here, he maybe even be a little more efficient than Brock Purdy. I'm like, say what? Like,
yeah, that part's hard to do.
It's hard to be more efficient. Well, it's hard to watch this stuff and say there's all these missed plays or missed opportunities. There really aren't there. You watch it and you go, there's so many plays that when they're there, they're made. And you're talking about the guy who was, like 7th in league in passing yards and last in passing attempts. The 49ers ended the season the last, like 32nd in the league in passing attempts. And, he's still throwing for all these yards. He's 9.6 yards per attempt. Like, these things don't just happen. And so, it's
he runs it perfect. He runs Kyle Shanahan's system perfectly. I don't think you could ask for much more. And to be fair, like, I've criticized Brock Purdy about his arm strength, but in that last year, and it turned out to not to be a problem at all. But to be fair, he also is great at making off-schedule plays. So I don't know why he gets that label. That one doesn't make sense to me. Now, I'll listen to arguments about arm strength, and like if he had better arm strength, he might be able to drive the ball downfield or harder in certain situations, tighter windows, but it doesn't seem to have hindered. That was my thing, right? Like I thought his arm strength is not good enough to where he's not gonna be able to make these downfield throws, and he's not gonna be able to throw into tight windows, and that's gonna cause problems. That's what my main thing was. I labeled that as dink and dunk. I didn't. That's probably the wrong definition for him. But what I was really talking about is just that arm strength, creating giving him an inability to do those things. However, I watched him play this year. It hasn't been a problem at all because of the stuff you're talking about, getting the ball out on time, his anticipation, his ability to read the field. It has become a non-issue, and that's why I said I was wrong about that. But I guess that's the only thing where you could want some improvement, I guess. But it's not gonna. You're not gonna see Brock Purdy's arm strength become a different arm. He might improve a little bit, but so far it hasn't mattered at all as far as running this offense. It's perfect for what Kyle Shanahan's doing.
And I think it also ties into so much of how Kyle has built this offense and traditionally what this offense has had. He attacks under coverage more than anybody in the league. I mean, nobody is going to stress. And when I say under coverage, I'm talking, that first level underneath coverage. When you're in cover 3, it's going to be the 4 underneath guys. When you're in cover 2, it's the 5 underneath guys. Nobody in this league ties their offense into attacking the under coverage and the run game as well as Kyle Shanahan does. With the way he's able to week in, week out, take a certain area and by every formation, every motion, be able to set all these things up in sequence. That's what I love about watching him, is watching the sequence and going through the scripted portions and seeing how he takes that and then uses that in the second quarter, kind of a thing. That when you talk about somebody who's putting so much stress on the under coverage, because that's who your run defenders are, right? Your guys that are closest line of scrimmage, those are your run defenders. When you're putting them in so much conflict and so much stress on run outside, and because all those screen passes, they're an extension of the run game, and all those wide receiver screens and all the end arounds and all the runs, and then the passes that tie into this, you go, Kyle's going to use it's almost the old Bill Walsh thing, throw to open up the run. Bill Walsh used to do that in a very horizontal passing game. That's what people always, the argument people always had about Joe Montana in the 80s. It wasn't a downfield passing attack because it was so horizontal, because it stressed that underneath so much. And that would open up the run game. That's so much what Kyle does. Nothing is in a vacuum. You can't take these plays and just look at them in a vacuum. And that's where I get frustrated with some of the analysis I see out there of guys, from different places that are putting up clips and showing this to Brock Purdy, oh, this and that. I go, yeah, but you're also ignoring of how this all ties in. And Brock's talked about that, of understanding that in his growth of, understanding why Kyle's running this now because of what he wants to do later, and tying all these things into each other. And so, yeah, I love the way that all this ties in, and Brock Purdy running this, the way there's a reason we're seeing such good offensive production.
Yeah, I agree. A couple more super chats. Lisa says, nailed it, JD. Do what is expected from a quarterback first before you have to get fancy. It's like asking what's 3 + 3 and you tell me 6, but 4 + 2 and 1 + 5 also equals 6. Thank you, Lisa, for sending that super chat. Dave Barclay says, you said if we keep up these super chats, if I catch you live, I try to lift up my people. Even if we never meet, we are like-minded. And if someone likes football in general, I can converse, but Niners are family to me. Dave, I appreciate it, man. And don't think, I'm like telling you guys, you have to give me super chats. I'm going to turn off those commercials. I keep forgetting, but I guess they're like loading commercials halfway through my stream. And that's annoying. So I'll turn that off either way. But yes, super chats are much appreciated. Thank you, Dave. Ricky Rich 209 says, does anyone know Brock's record in the rain? What is it?
So here's this is a talking point. I know Peter brought that up when he was with you, of Brock Purdy in the rain and the concern there. I guess here's where I'm not too concerned. The last playoff game Brock Purdy played in the rain, he threw for 332 yards and 4 touchdowns. Most people forget that.
What game was that? Seahawks?
That was the Seahawks wild card game. If you remember, the first pass he threw in the game, the ball kind of sailed on him. It was wet because it was been raining, and everyone goes, is this rain going to affect him? And then he just went off in that game after that. So I'm not super concerned about the weather. Yeah, there was the Browns game where it was a monsoon and the ball slipped a couple times. I remember I reached out to Greg Pinelli after I was watching the tape on Brock's interception, because the thing was, the ball came out. Everyone said the ball came out of his hand weird on that. It must have been the rain. When I watched the tape, I was like, it didn't look like a ball issue. Like the way that it came out of his hand didn't look like it was an issue. I saw something with the footwork there. I reached out to Greg Pinelli. Most people know he was Josh Allen's quarterback coach. And I sent the clip to him. I said, hey, is he got his front foot too closed off here? That's what it looks like to me. And he was like, oh yeah, super, super closed off. He probably yanked that to his left. And sure enough, ball had yanked to his left and it was a pick. I'm not as much worried about the rain on this one, I think, as most people are.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm looking at the weather. It doesn't seem like it's going to be much of a factor at all. I don't think it might not even rain at all. So I think it's a non-issue, at least in this game. I think he's 1-1 Browns and Seahawks. Those are only 2 rain games I can really think of. So we haven't seen enough to say we have a pattern of anything yet. Moonman says JDGB's 5-man fronts be effective. Ravens ran it a lot.
Yeah. Yes, the Ravens did, and it's hard coming off a game with the Ravens game where the offense struggled like they did to put up points. Now I will say this: the offense didn't struggle to move the ball, and that was something I had gone and watched a lot of Green Bay's tape, Baltimore's tape before that game, and I think I did a scouting video on it. And one thing I talked about, or I showed some clips on my YouTube channel, it was alive, that I felt like the middle of the field was going to be able to be attacked against Baltimore's base defense. And because they ran a lot of fire zones. So they would come out in their 3-4 base and they would bring 5. And that meant that you were going to only have one underneath zone defender. And he's usually a 3 receiver hook. So he's going to shade to the 3 receiver side. And so we hit several big chunk plays over the middle that went to the 2 receiver side coming over the middle, because you're going to have more space in the middle of the field there. Green Bay, when I watched their tape, runs very similar stuff, very similar openings there. Minnesota was able to hit a few big plays against them. So, and not just Minnesota, Tampa Bay did it. Dallas did it a couple times. Dallas just didn't run out of get them in base that much. I don't know, that's just not what Dallas does. It's not Mike McCarthy. So I think you're going to have the similar opportunities there. And against Baltimore, we're getting like 9 yards per play. Moving the ball was not a problem against Baltimore. It was the turnovers. Unless Green Bay is able to force a whole bunch of turnovers, I don't see that 5-man front being really effective against us.
Yeah. And Lisa says rain isn't in the forecast. Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Lisa. James says, got to push back against the Seattle game. He threw 3 to 4 interceptions were dropped before correcting. If those had been caught, different ball game.
Yeah, those weren't from the rain, though. There was a couple there where he didn't look a guy off enough. I remember one was over the middle. He kind of sort of half-heartedly looked an underneath guy. It was man coverage, cover 1 man, I believe. There was a lurk defender there. He tried to look him off to the right and then force the ball in there. And that's one thing that you haven't seen Brock Purdy do as much of as far as force those kinds of throws. He's been a little bit more patient and not just, okay, I can turn and look this guy up and then put the ball in there. That was a Jimmy G thing. Like Jimmy G you'd see him. Sometimes people say, well, you didn't see this guy drop down. So a lot of times you'd see him see the guy and he'd think he could just look him off, and he would do a half-hearted look off and throw the ball in there anyways. And he'd throw a pick, and that would be so frustrating. And that was one thing I saw with Brock Purdy. I was like, don't go down this road again. But we haven't seen that as a problem here this season. So, some of those were there. Some of that was one
of those picks.
Seattle was playing good defense.
One of those picks I remember, it felt Jimmy G-ish, right? I think he just didn't see the linebacker, if I'm remembering correctly, or is a safety? I'm trying to remember,
it was a linebacker, and I remember, you can see his head turn to the side and then come back and throw the ball. And that's a situation where a guy's probably turning his head in the right way, but he's not keeping his eyes where he needs to. He thinks, if I turn my head this way, this guy's going to move and I'm going to have this open here. And so he's turning to look at the receiver, but he's not actually checking on the guy he's trying to look off. He's assuming the guy's going to move. And so that's one area that, as Brock has gotten really comfortable in the offense in this second year, you're not seeing those same kind of mistakes as much.
Yeah, I agree. I want to ask you this. When you watch the tape, what jumped out the most about the Packers to you when you watched, because you watched the whole entire film, the all 22, you broke it down, made a video about it, the accumulation of all of that? What jumped out the most to you about the Packers?
it's not as much about the Packers, but how bad Dallas's defense played in that game. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was as bad of a defensive performance as you're ever going to see on tape.
Yeah.
Now the caveat to that, and this is where Packers fans have been a little upset at me. They're like, you're just saying you're discounting the Packers. We've been doing really well, and I say, yes, you have. But that Dallas defense was in shambles. I mean, they were busting coverages left and right. Now, with that, Matt LaFleur was pulling out all the shot plays. And what I mean by that is when you run your base offense, you have certain plays, and then you have these counters off of that are your shot plays. So, for example, we run what's called a slide concept a lot. So you're gonna have your wide zone, and then a counter to that is the slide concept where it's wide zone. And we've seen this where the quarterback then has a keeper coming out the other side. Receivers are all running opposite of where the run fake was, and it's usually a throw in the flat or a throw at about 12 yards. So you have those, and then you have your corner post. And that's where, because the deep route on that slide concept's a corner route. And now you run it and you run a corner and a post route. So it's a corner post, and that's when your shot plays. And then you usually have that with you have your leak, your Y leak, which is your tight end leak. So you're going to make it look like this slide and a tight end leak out the backside. And they ran that, and Dallas totally busted the coverage. It was man coverage. The guy doesn't even turn to realize he busted his coverage.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally standing at the line of scrimmage when the ball is thrown, and the guy's wide open. So there's that. We run this a lot where we'll clear out one side, and you see this kind of through route or over route high crosser that comes through. We run it all the time. They ran the counter on it early in the game where, you're clearing it out one side, you start on the through route, and there's a little nod, that comes back the other way. And Gilmore was like, okay, here it is. Here's that high crosser we've been waiting for. He undercuts the route, turns back to look at the quarterback, thinking he's going to get a pick. And while he's got his head turned around, the receiver, breaks outside and it's wide open. And, so you're just seeing this stuff that's like, he went to all the shots. I mean, he was going for it. Like when you say playing with house money, Matt LaFleur was playing with house money. So, San Francisco's got to be ready for that they're going to be coming at you with the shot plays, and they're not going to look to set them up for 2.5, 3 quarters before they do it. They're going to try and hit them early. And so be ready for that. That's the thing that stood out the most to me from the Packers. And one, Jordan Love's ability to have arm strength while throwing off platform. That was something, I hadn't watched a ton of tape on him as far as his off platform abilities to drive the ball, and he's got an arm. He doesn't have to have a good base to really drive that ball. Now, some of those balls weren't exactly really super accurate. So is there going to be some opportunities there? If you can make him do some of that stuff, can you get some hands on some footballs? We'll see. He's been very good at taking care of the ball. So that'll be a challenge.
One of the things like you talked about earlier is how Jordan Love tends to hang on to the ball a little longer than he probably should. I think that's going to be a problem, I would imagine. Now, I know that Packers, pass protection is supposed to be better than the Niners, but are they going to be good enough to stop the 49ers pass rush? That I don't know. I expect, Armstead's back. Hargrave is rested. Bosa's rested. Chase Young is rested. Now, Clelin Ferrell, I don't think he's going to be able to play. It doesn't sound like, maybe, but doubtful. But outside of that, man, this 49ers pass rush, I believe, is going to get after Jordan Love. But they do have to stay disciplined a little bit of like what they did to Jalen Hurts, because Jordan Love can move as well. But holding on the ball too long, I think, is a formula for disaster against this pass rush. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're 100% right there, and he likes to roll out to his right. You see a lot of that, and like there was times he had clean pockets against Dallas, and you see him like almost start to take off to his right, or he would take off to his right, and then he'd come back. Take away his ability to roll to the right and force him to stay in that pocket and exhaust a play, and you're going to let Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead really get after it. And I think what you're going to see is one, there's going to be a strong commitment to stop the run. That's what Tampa Bay did. They were very good at it. And stop that run. Don't let them get that game going, which, again, Armstead being back will be huge. Kinlaw has been driving me nuts the last month or so because the guy is so physically talented, but just will get himself ejected from a hole by taking a slant and not the proper technique on it. And so getting Armstead in there, you're going to have less space for guys to have to make tackles in. I think it's a cascading effect. Is that when there's more space that guys have to make tackles in, there's more missed tackles. And so when Armstead's not in there, one, your line is getting moved more vertical. They're moving the line of scrimmage easier. So that's giving them yards. And then two, guys are having to tackle more in space and they're missing tackles and they're getting more yards. So it's a cascading effect.
Yeah.
Armstead is huge for our run defense.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be, a lot of 3rd and 7s, a lot of 3rd and 8s. And that's when you're going to see Kasurik and Wilkes. They're going to bring Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner up to force line slides. And that's going to create one-on-one opportunities for Armstead and Hargrave against their guards. And I think they're going to try and create those guys into space so that if Love's going to escape, he's got to escape up the pocket. They're going to try and make sure that he doesn't get an outlet wide. So keep contain on the outside, create one-on-ones with those guards and let Hargrave and Armstead eat. And if he holds the ball a little long, it's going to lead to some sacks.
Yeah, man, I think that's going to be a big part of the game. Zach Stroud says Love, Purdy, and Stroud are looking to be the next group of dudes at QB for a while. Yeah, they are the young future, man. Yeah, it definitely feels like that. I wanted to get your take, man. How do the 49ers attack the Packers offensively? Like what do they need to do? I got my take, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, first challenge is going to be handling Kenny Clark. When you go back to 2021, we were really struggling running the ball. That was a game we played early that year. We lost to the Packers on a last-minute second field goal from Mason Crosby. We lost 30-28. Trey Sermon was the running back in that game, and I think we only had 13 rushes for 11 yards, something like that in that game. Yeah. Now, Alex Mack also had a really hard time handling Kenny Clark at the nose. He was getting pushed around a lot in that game. Kenny Clark's a problem. And now when you go fast forward to that year to the playoff game, we're running a little bit wider. We're not running as much stuff as inside. And the challenge was, how do we handle their 5 techniques? And there were opportunities for Elijah Mitchell in that game for some massive cutbacks. He wasn't reading the 5 tech real well. Like there was times that it should have been a cutback. The guy was playing outside shade or outside shoulder of the tackle on those stretch runs. And there was some big holes. I mean, we're talking like when you go, okay, this may be a house call if he cuts it at the right time. And one thing about Christian McCaffrey is that he is on time with these zone runs. I mean, Gibbs used to teach that it was your 3rd step was your read step, 5th step was your cut step on these wide zones. And so Christian McCaffrey, if you watch him, 5th step, he's either heading straight for the hole or he's cutting it back. Elijah Mitchell that time was not as on time. And so I think it's going to be, if you handle Kenny Clark and you're able to get on their 5 techs, you're going to be able to run the ball. Their linebackers to me are not great. I think they're good, but they're not great. And I think they're going to have some problems there. And so, this is giving me shades of 2019 on their defense, where we have the ability and I think an opportunity to just really run at them. And then when you start running at them, you're going to start seeing these wide receiver reverses. Carolina hit him for a touchdown on one. Dallas tried to run one. They had an opportunity for it to be a bigger play. Wasn't there. And I saw it run a couple other times from other teams, and the opportunities were there. I think we're going to hit those. This is going to be a heavy dose of run in this game.
I hope so, man. That's I'm not really worried about this game. I think the 49ers win. I think they cover the spread, and maybe I'll get into a game prediction at the end here with you. But I think the 49ers, one of the ways they lose, and I don't think it's likely, but if they do, it's because they abandon the run too soon, or they don't even go after it like they should have. Kind of like how they approached the Ravens game. I don't know if that was like 3D chess for Kyle Shanahan in case he plays the Ravens in the Super Bowl or what that was. But I just really just start with the run early, stick with the run. Don't give up on the run. I feel like if the 49ers do that, I can't see any way that they lose this game. I do want to ask you that, though. How can the 49ers lose this game?
The only team in Santa Clara tomorrow that could lose this game, or that could beat the 49ers, is the 49ers. The only way they lose this game is they completely botch everything. There's bad turnovers, there's special teams problems, there's busts on defense. They have to not be on their details. They have to not be on their assignments. That's how the 49ers lose this game. If they come in and they aren't on it. Now, everything that we've seen from the players that look like this week does not look that way. We're not getting that vibe in any way. It's looking like they're very locked in. I think it would be a beyond massive fail if they lost this game. I've been as ardent a Kyle Shanahan supporter as has been for the last 7 years or 6 years. I would be pretty fired up at him and taking some serious shots if they came out and lost this game.
Yeah. I think this is all by recollection. I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure it's true that whenever if Brock Purdy doesn't turn over the ball, the team is undefeated. I'm pretty sure that's 100% true. I'll go double check, but I think just by recollection, I'm pretty sure that that's accurate. If he doesn't turn over the ball, the 49ers have not lost. And that's really what it's going to come down to. I think the 49ers team is so much better than the Packers team in almost every single aspect, that as long as we don't turn the ball over and we just do what we do, the 49ers run the ball. Brock Purdy converts at a high clip. He doesn't need to be the hero, and the defense comes out and plays the way that they're capable of playing. I don't see how the Packers can win. So to me, that's the key to the game. I did promise you I'd get you out of here sooner than this, but I do want to get your final game prediction. How do you see this game going? Do you have a score prediction for us?
I think this is going to be a game that the 49ers start to walk away in the middle of the second quarter. I think people are saying that they're going to cover the spread. I've been seeing that more. Honestly, I just don't see it. I think on the defensive side, they're going to be a lot more prepared for what Matt LaFleur is going to be trying to bring than Dallas was. Dallas looks so out of sorts. What it looked like to me was that Dallas thought that game going in was going to be a track meet, and that they were planning on we're gonna put up a ton of points on this defense, and so we're going to be ready to stop their passing game so they can't run the ball or move the ball down and score. And that backfired on them so bad. They were trying to do so many things again to almost attack that way, that guys were playing zone coverage assignments they really hadn't played all year and busting their assignments, and they're having guys who are getting out of their run gaps. And I don't think that's going to be the case here. Kyle Shanahan is going to come in and he's going to say, this is January football. This is what he always does every year. This is January football. It's about stopping the run, running the ball, rushing the passer. Green Bay's got to earn the right to rush the passer. I don't think they're going to. San Francisco understands they have to earn the right to rush the passer, and they have the personnel to do it. And they're going to, and they're going to get after him. I think it's 38-17. I don't think this is a close game.
Yeah, I think I have. What did I have? Yeah, I said it yesterday. 34-20. 34-20 is what I have. Although getting to 20 might be difficult. That might actually come off 3 touchdowns and a missed extra point from their kicker, and not 2 field goals. Yeah, man, that's my prediction as well. I think the 49ers win and they cover the spread. Do me a favor, guys, you guys in the chat. I have a 49ers beanie I've been trying to give away for weeks. Last year, last season, when I'd be like, predict the score, and I'll give you this beanie as jersey, and people were nailing it. This year, it's been like 5 weeks straight. Nobody's nailed the score. So in the comments, and not in the chat, but in the comments after the show, go predict the score and the outcome. And if you win that, I'll give you away the Niners beanie that I got right here. And then win every single win for the 49ers this postseason, I'm going to be giving away a jersey the following show. So we play on Saturday. Tap in on Monday at 9 a.m. Because I fully expect the 49ers to win. And I'll have a trivia question. Whoever answers it correctly wins a 49ers jersey of your choice. So make sure you're liked and subscribed to both channels here, Johnny Dell's channel as well. Give us the name of the channel one more time so that everyone can subscribe if they're not already, even though you probably have – I know you have a ton more subscribers than I do. So, but let everyone know.
It's Johnny Dell's Football Academy. Yeah, I was shocked last night after the video dropped. I just crossed 22,000 subs. It was
huge.
Is fantastic. It again blows my mind. In my mind, I'm still the small kid on the block.
Right.
And you can also find me on Twitter at Johnny Dells. Google Johnny Dell, you'll find me.
Yeah, there's a fly in my office right now, and it's driving me freaking insane.
I hate that. I hate that
Yeah.
because the camera can't see it, but you can, and so
Yeah.
people think you're crazy. I've had that a few times, like little gnats flying around, and you're
Right.
grabbing at it, and people are like,
Yes.
"What is Johnny
Yeah.
on drugs? Like, what's happening?"
Yeah, I usually have my fan on, and that helps because I have an office in my backyard, and I have like 2 dogs, so but the fan helps. But I turned it off for some reason. Brother Bob says, "Read my super chat." My bad, bro. He says Johnny Dell's right. I said 4117. Book it. All right, man. I read. You thought I was not gonna read your chat, Brother Bob? Come on, man. You should know me better than that. Johnny, man, it's great to finally have you on the show, man. Hopefully we can do it soon again, and then we don't not so much time in between on the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it'd be great to do a post Super Bowl 49ers celebrating their 6th Lombardi video. I think that's what all of us would dream for.
Yeah, man, that would be fantastic. You guys are the best. Today is what? Today is Friday. So I'm going to watch that game tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday at 9 a.m., hopefully giving away a 49ers jersey to one of you guys. Make sure you're like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, all that good stuff. And then I'll see you on Monday, man. Go Niners. Good luck in this game. Johnny, thanks for being here, brother.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.